the Redwall series, both the book and the TV show, was one of the major touchstones of my creative development. I loved reading and watching it as a kid, and well into my teen years. One memory in particular, though, stands out. It's the memory of when I first saw a particular character in the TV series. He's not a hero or a villain. He's not even a supporting role, really. The character that made the biggest impression on me only appeared in one book, and only for a few minutes. After that, he was gone. I'm referring to a character called...
Silly beast.
Skirl Droptail.
For those unfamiliar with this little stinker, Skirl is a crested newt. Although, for the longest time, I thought he was a frilled lizard, because that's what he looks like in the TV show. Crested newts are found throughout the European continent, which is where the Redwall series takes place. Frilled lizards, on the other hand, yeah, not so much. But, which of these two critters does he resemble more closely? Come on, tell me I'm wrong. I know it sounds like I'm nitpicking here, but this is actually an important detail to me, because from the beginning, I thought Skirl was a lizard, and it was the first time I saw, or thought I saw, an anthropomorphic lizard character that actually had a personality and didn't look overly cartoony. In short, he felt much more real to me, and I became fascinated with him and lizard characters in general. So even though he is technically a newt in the story, which would make him an amphibian, I'll be referring to him as a lizard throughout this video, because that's what I thought he was for years, and that's frankly how I'll always see him. Anyway, if you're familiar with the book Matameo, you probably know that Skirl isn't that great of a character. Here's a quick recap. Many of the children from Redwall Abbey are kidnapped by Slagar the Cruel, intent on selling them into slavery. While chained together, the children encounter Skirl, who sneaks up to them while the guards aren't looking and claims to have a set of keys that he can use to free them. He demands payment, though, and the children gather all of their personal belongings, including a tail bracelet from Sam the Squirrel, a small brass bell from Tess the Church Mouse, and a white cord belt from Matameo that belonged to one of Redwall's previous abbots. Skirl accepts the gifts, but then runs off while taunting the children, telling them that he never had any keys to begin with. Soon after, however, Skirl is found by the parents, who set out looking for their missing children. I guess that's what happens when you run around Mossflower wearing a bell around your neck. Not so sneaky now, are you, buddy? The parents immediately recognize the belongings of their missing children and interrogate Skirl, and may or may not have threatened to cut off his head if he didn't give them the info they needed. Harsh, but fair? Skirl spills the beans, telling them the direction that Slagar and his gang were headed, which was important because they had previously laid a false trail which Matthias and his group had been following. This new information puts them back on the right track. They take back the children's belongings, telling Skirl he can have them back after they find their children. Skirl, however, runs away and is never seen again for the rest of the book, let alone the rest of the series. Oh, Skirl Droptail, we hardly knew ye. And that just didn't seem fair to me. I wanted more sassy, mischievous lizard in my life. I attribute Skirl with turning me into a scaly. Yes, that's right, I was a scaly before I even knew about furries. I went on to invent other anthropomorphic reptile characters, one or more of which may have become kind of important. But I also imagined a much different role for Skirl to play in the story of Matameo. You could consider it a fanfic, except for the fact that I don't actually have it written down anywhere. But in a nutshell, it goes something like this. Skirl takes the children's belongings and is subsequently nabbed by their parents, just like in the original. However, they don't fully trust that he's telling the truth about the direction they were headed. So, they tie him up and take him with them, promising to free him should his information prove accurate. Hilarity ensues with Skirl making various escape attempts, and bickering with different members of the group, but also making friends with Cheek, the young otter. Just the squirrel eventually begins to soften towards him, and finally convinces the rest of the group to untie him, pointing out that they are no better than the villains who kidnap their children if they keep him tied up against his will. It's never established just how old Skirl is, but his appearance, voice, and behavior in the TV show make him seem very young, probably close to the age of the kidnapped children. so Jess's argument strikes a chord with the group. They untie him, but ask that he stay and help them locate their children, promising to return the belongings to him that he had previously stolen, and also to keep him fed and safe if he stays. That night, Skrull slinks away as soon as he can, but then returns before morning. He had been a solitary creature for most of his life, but was touched by the kindness shown to him by Jess, and also by the concern the parents had for their children. So he decides to stay. As the heroes begin to see signs that Skrull was telling the truth about the direction the slavers were headed, their attitude towards him softens further. They eventually come to the cave where they see footprints of Slagar and the slaves leading in. As they begin making plans to storm the cave and rescue their children, Skrull becomes noticeably agitated and frightened. Seeing this, Jess thanks Skrull for leading them there, and gives him the trinkets as promised, telling him he is free to go. As they head off to rescue their children, Skrull once again turns to leave, but then stays, hiding in the trees to watch what happens. It's there that he witnesses the rock slide, sprung by Slagar, trapping the heroes inside the cave. Skrull wants to help those trapped inside, but then sees the children who had escaped their chains come to try and dig them out. Remembering that they're the ones he stole from, he keeps his distance and instead heads up the river to try and find help. There he comes across the Gauzum shrews and Logalog, and he begins spouting rapidly the story of his trapped friends. At first, the shrews are inclined to ignore him, or even shoo him away, but then Logalog notices the white cord around his neck, recognizing its origins. He decides to follow Skrull, and there finds the rock slide, and together with the other shrews is able to dig out the heroes. By this point, the children had been recaptured, and along with the rest of the slave group, were long gone. But the heroes had been saved, thanks in part to Skrull alerting Logalog to their location, and were once again back on the trail, now with reinforcements. The group eventually makes it to the lair of Malkaris, where the children and other slaves had been sold. There, Skrull puts his sneaking skills to good use, and is able to spy out some information about where the slaves are located before the heroes charge in, confront and defeat Malkaris and Slagar, and free their children and the other slaves. Once safe, the children recognize Skrull. They are understandably confused at first upon seeing him there, and even more understandably angry and suspicious at him. But after their parents explain how he helped them, they forgive him. Once more, Skrull is thanked for all his help, and is told that he is free to leave. But Skrull tearfully tells them that he doesn't want to go. Seeing how devoted the parents were to their children, and how strong their friendship was for each other, made Skrull desire that for himself, and he begs to be allowed to come with them. They agree, and make the journey back to Redwall Abbey. Upon their return, Skrull is not only treated like a hero, but also as a curiosity, as he is the first lizard to ever set foot in the Abbey. Though he enjoys the food and celebration, all the attention starts to get to him, and he finds a moment to quietly slip away into the courtyard. Later that night, Jess finds him hiding in a tree. Recognizing that he's overwhelmed by his new surroundings, she comforts him and offers to let him sleep with her and Sam. Not many days after, Jess adopts Skrull as her son. Eventually, Skrull grows into a handsome young adult lizard who spends much of his time as a sort of ranger/herbalist, exploring the forest near the abbey for roots, herbs, and mushrooms to be used in the infirmary and kitchens. On one such excursion, he happens to meet a lovely young lady lizard, and after a meet-cute involving some initial hostility and suspicion, she helps him locate a particularly rare and useful patch of herbs, and he takes her to Redwall Abbey to help heal an injury she had sustained prior to meeting him. She becomes familiar with the beasts of Redwall, and eventually she and Skrull fall in love, get married, have a clutch of adorable baby lizards, and... I guess that's enough. Hey, I hope you guys enjoyed taking this trip down memory lane with me. This is my first time making a video like this. I am still working on my comics and other artwork, so videos of this format will probably be relatively rare. But if you enjoyed it and would like to see more, I'd love to hear from you. Special shout out to Nova Nocturne. She is currently hosting a giveaway for an absolutely gorgeous Redwall-themed tapestry and enamel pin set. One of the prompts for that giveaway was the inspiration for this video. Check out her website and definitely enter that giveaway if there's still time. If the giveaway has already ended, still check out her artwork as well as the Redwall-themed merchandise in her shop. Links in the description. If you'd like to follow more of my work, including my webcomic Aw Feathers, which is a lighthearted Utah Valley college drama with furries, you can follow me on social media or sign up for my newsletter to never miss an update, and also to keep up on other stuff that I'm working on, like maybe future videos. Who knows? Anyway, thank you all one final time for watching.